Can good design shape a better world? At Monocle's Quality of Life conference in Barcelona this September, we'll be putting that question to the people who already are. Join leading designers, architects, and creative leaders as we explore how design intersects with culture, business, and everyday life. Plus, great food, excellent company, and plenty of Catalan charm. Find out more and book your seat at monocle.com/conference.
This is Monocle on Design, a show where we discuss everything from architecture and craft to furniture and graphic design. I'm Nick Manise. On today's program, we meet Indonesian textile and fashion designer Obin. And Sam Hecht of Industrial Facility talks all things tactility. Plus, it's the last instalment of our summer series. All that coming up on Monocle on Design. Hello and welcome to today's program. We're starting in Indonesia, where we're meeting a powerhouse textile and clothing designer, Josephine Kamara. Known as Obin, she began collecting antique textiles in her teenage years, setting her on a path to open her own shop, Bin House, in Jakarta in 1986. Initially, the store supplied interior designers with curtains, upholstery and pillowcases for hotels, but Obin soon turned her attention to garments. In doing so, she proved that batik could be worn casually, showing that this traditional Indonesian dyeing technique using wax resist appealed to a contemporary crowd. Monocle's Ryuma Takahashi met with the designer to discuss her passion for textile creation and traditional fashion in Indonesia and Japan.
I never finished my schooling, but it doesn't mean that I stopped learning. Maybe the fortunate thing about me not going to school is I could travel all over Indonesia and see everything. When I was about 19 years old, I started to weave raw silk, which is rough silk, from Indonesia. And I started making this for upholstery, for lampshades, for interior. Then I started to do ikat, very thick ikat fabrics. And this was in 1978-79. At that time, the Hilton Hotel was being built. Mandarin Hotel was being built. Arya Duta Hotel was being built. And all the interior designers and architects couldn't find nice, durable, beautiful, hand-woven fabrics. And they saw this from Indonesia and they said, even abroad, they've never seen this. So this was like the toast of the town and everybody was looking for it. Now, from very thick fabric, from very thick texture, I kept on weaving and weaving and weaving until I could weave thinner and thinner fabrics. Sometimes they become very sheer, like transparent. It got finer and finer and finer. I have two big chests cupboards here. One was full of weaving antique pieces from all over the outer islands. The other one was the antique batiks from Java. The old vintage batiks that you see in the museums and everywhere are all on cotton. Indonesia does not have cotton. We get the cotton as a result of bartering, trading. Indonesia is an archipelago. Its waters are surrounded, so we are open area for everybody. Merchants, traders, everybody. So we trade. These are the antique batiks, the very famous cotton batik cloth. In Java, they call it mori. Mori are white cotton cloths, already washed and scored, prepared for batik. In 1987, I took out all the ikat fabrics. Then I took all the antique batiks fabric. And then in my mind's eye, I saw a piece of cloth, very beautifully woven, very thin, very transparent, very sheer, but with a batik motif on it. This has never happened before. Ever since I did that, I started to redo the cloths. 50% of my clients are the younger generation. I have children from 5 years old wearing the Bin House clothes. I have young teenagers who go to their graduation proms wearing kain and kebaya. And since 18 years ago, The younger generation that goes to the office to wear, they wear the cloth. Sometimes with a normal formal top, sometimes with a t-shirt. I dress like this every day. To the supermarket, to the airport, I like this. And so are my friends and clients too. People ask me, this is such a traditional world. How do you survive or how do you cope with the modern world? I think it is not a correct question. Traditional is the way we are, the way we were brought up. Traditional is the way our mannerisms, the way we bring ourselves, our attitude. Modern is the way we think. Modern is perspective, way of thinking. So one does not have anything to do with the other.
Do you have any secret to reaching this younger generation?
All Indonesian textiles are passed down from their parents to the children. Every Indonesian that you ask will always have something, pile of cloth from their mother or their father. Every person who passes away in this country passed down their most valuable possessions, which is always including the cloth, to the children and to the grandchildren. The second thing is we are a land with many traditions. We are not the monoculture. We have many cultures. We have Javanese, Central Javanese, we have Madura, Sunda, Bugis, Batak, Nias, Kalimantan. And each one has their own traditions and cultures. And in every tradition and in every ceremony, the cloth is very important to be there. When you lose the traditions, you lose everything. But most of all, you lose the cloth. Every motif has a meaning. In Asia, motifs have meanings.
When I think about my hometown, Kyoto, we have famous fabrics and clothing like Nishijin ori or kimono, but many young people aren't interested in Nishijin ori, and you can only see it in souvenir shop or museums. Kimono is also, it's not everyday wear. On the other hand, in Indonesia, traditional clothing like batik and kebaya are casually worn by young people. What do you think about the difference between that?
I see a renaissance in Japan. I see young people wearing the kimono in a very funky way, in a very nice way, not in the traditional, complicated way. That is fantastic. That's the beginning of something. Allow them to touch the cloth. There's so many ways you can do it. All it needs is just to be done. I've been traveling to Japan for the past 25 years. I've always been invited by the Japanese government, always to give lecture. My lectures and exhibitions are always in the center of the textile industry of Japan to show them, I am from Indonesia. These are my cloths. This is my country. This is my culture. These cloths are very old and we are still making them. The minute we stop making them, the minute people don't wear the cloths, the tradition is gone.
So you're saying that the way to wear should change with the times.
The way of wearing is according to the times. A piece of cloth, it can be worn any way you want. You can tie it on your head. You can tie it on the ground. There is no rule in how to tie and wear a piece of cloth. The human body is the basis of the inspiration for a cloth maker. Whether it's modern or traditional, it doesn't matter.
Bin-house is also popular with foreign customers. Are you considering expanding internationally?
You see, if you want to have a shop somewhere abroad selling bin-house, it cannot be just as a pure business. It has the person who carries it has to like it and understand it and know it. Then they can open it. I'd love to have a shop everywhere, but right now we have the internet that's also working very well, except that they can't touch the cloth, but they can feel it, sense it. So the need is not that big an urgency. Indonesia has a very strong buying power. And because of the way it's made, how many cloths can I make? Some of the cloths take 8 months to make, 6 months to make. How many cloths can I make?
As House, what vision do you hope to achieve?
I would like the work of what we do to last for many generations. I would like the processes and the skills that we have to be successfully passed down from one person to another as much as possible so that it will not be lost.
That was fashion and textile designer Obin in conversation with Monocle's Ryuma Takahashi. Next up, we're talking tactility. Dials and switches, buttons and flickers. From when we're children, we're inadvertently programmed to reach for these tactile elements, intuitively knowing that pressing, pulling or pushing them will change a system, machine or object. But in an age of endless digital touchscreens and updates, is there an argument for the return of analogue features? I certainly think so, having found myself wandering around hotel rooms, unsuccessfully trying to find a switch for turning lights on and off, only to learn that I had to use an iPad to make such a move. It's gotten my goat so many times that I caught up with friend of the show, Sam Hecht, to talk me through it. He's the co-founder of London-based practice Industrial Facility and joined me in the studio to discuss the role of buttons, trackpads and screens. He began by sharing two constraints that often determine a product's interface.
There's always been two pressures, shall we say, on the industry when it comes to interface. And one is efficiency and optimization. So moving parts, in other words, something that has a part going up and down, inherently can be a point of weakness in a system because it can break, it can wear. Whereas screens, because there's not really any moving parts, it generally can be somewhat maintenance proof. So this optimization drive. And the other one is, of course, greater and more richer control. Screens give you that ability to essentially change the layout of what you're interfacing with very, very quickly through software. It's this tussle between efficiency and optimization and the ability to create a richer level of content that can be controlled.
Is there something to the efficiency of a button and not having to navigate a user interface? I think there's something quite nice that it's either on or off, or if you're looking at a dial, it's either up or down. Like, is there something to be said about that in terms of efficiency?
Well, yes. That goes back really to the primordial essence of what a switch is. It's interesting that if you were to ask someone, when was the first time you operated a switch, turned something on and off, it's not really possible to remember. And that means that no one ever taught you how to turn something on and off. It was something that was felt by you probably as a baby. Now, what's interesting is, as a baby, most switches that operated things, shall we say, electrically were dangerous. So we were told not to touch switches. So if you have a crawling baby, you would try to protect your electrical sockets so that the attractiveness of pressing something is avoided. But at the same time, we were presented as children with lots of Fisher-Price toys with buttons. And so the relationship between pressing something on and off and the tactile feedback is ingrained in all of us, and we enjoy it because it gives us a sense of control and reassurance. We know when something has been activated and when something has been stopped. Now, it's true, you don't get that sort of experiential feeling so acutely when you're operating surfaces or screens. Industry is constantly trying to see if they can replicate that very basic primordial concept of tactile feedback, most notably Apple, who really pioneered what they call haptic engine. A lot of people know a laptop, and a laptop has a screen, but we're often not interacting with the screen, we're interacting with a keyboard. And that keyboard has physical keys that are indeed going up and down. And then we have a trackpad. And a trackpad is essentially a capacitive or sensitive surface where you can move your finger around to see a pointer on a screen, but you can also press it. So you're pressing down and it's physically moving up and down like a key. Yeah. And so you feel that click. What Apple did was they didn't invent it, but they perfected it. They took the trackpad and they made it glass, so it's actually glass, but it looks like it's metal. And when you press it, you feel like you're pressing a switch. And so the way it does it is a combination of force sensors, so that glass knows you're pressing it, it knows where you're pressing it, and it knows how hard you're pressing it. And in return, it gives you a little treat of a click, which is through vibration. So you can tell this because if the laptop is off and you press it, there's nothing happening. There's no moving parts. And it does indeed mimic the switch to the point where the brain is totally convinced I'm pressing something down and up. Why would Apple do that? Because, again, there's no moving parts. You can have a slimmer laptop. Very little can go wrong with it. And you can press it anywhere and it'll have the same experience. So it means that the tactile feedback of pressing a switch is still very, very important, even for the most advanced technology companies. Otherwise, they wouldn't put that much effort into it.
You know, you mentioned Apple spending some serious money on this. Is there then a case to be made for haptic feedback, for tactility in design, building that in? To me, it feels like we are maybe also seeing a shift towards people wanting simpler technology. Is that kind of linked in there as well for a business case?
The phone's a tricky one. They've tried it many times. The challenge really for a business is switches, shall we say buttons, they tend to be, shall we say, low resolution. And when you're dealing with more complex interfaces, it does require higher resolution. So there is this, shall we say, slight conflict that you have to lower the resolution of your product to garner a more, shall we say, experiential, tactile feeling. You only have to look at companies like BlackBerry that obviously had a huge fan base, but eventually it was very, very difficult for it to maintain it as the screen became more and more rich and experiential. But having said that, in terms of a differentiation, in terms of the feeling of a human connection, shall we say, and in particular simplicity, which is vital. People like simple things, they don't like complex things. Then things that have simpler control, they do have a dramatic effect. It really comes down to what is the essence of what you're trying to do. The classic example I always teach my students is we're faced with a media screen like a television, and of course you need to control it, so you have a remote control. And what's interesting about the remote control is you don't look at the remote control. You tend to look at the TV when you're controlling it. And yet most manufacturers still ship a remote control with lots and lots of buttons, lots of colours, lots of text. But it doesn't really get to the essence of what you're actually trying to do, which is control media by looking at it. Often what's tasked to designers in companies is how can we improve the experience of the remote control? And often that comes down to, well, let's make it bigger, let's have more buttons, let's make it more comfortable with a hand. But of course, all of those things are utterly meaningless because they're not getting to the essence of controlling the media. In that sense, mistakes continually happen. You occasionally see products that are highly innovative because they're really thinking about controlling media and holding something and not having to look at it. And so you start to see what's called the next big thing in the world of control, which is gestural control. And ultimately the Vision Pro, again, I have to mention Apple because they are investing so much in it. But the idea of not having anything that you are physically holding, but instead you're clicking your fingers or you're pulling things. You're almost like an Italian who's talking on the phone with their hands. You're making these gestures and you're controlling an interface. So that probably is where a lot of things will go. It probably feels a little bit alien to people, but I would imagine that entrepreneurs in particular can't really avoid it. They need to engage with gestural control because it will add an element of fine control that is very difficult to get with, shall we say, physical buttons.
So if we've gone haptic to gestural, where does that leave buttons and switches and knobs now?
Well, in our company, Future Facility and Industrial Facility, they're still very important. In fact, I would say they're at the top of our minds. It's primarily because we still navigate in a world of buttons, and they are a signal. If you're on the London Tube, you'll be standing and you'll see a button and it'll say emergency, and that's a physical button. I understand immediately without touching it that if I press it, something's going to happen. And not only that, but I know it's a switch. I know I'm going to press it or pull it even or move it. Those things are still all around us in terms of navigating our world. So why is that important? Because they are signals. They're a signal for an input and an action. I'm not saying that they need to be applied to everything, but in the most basic way, they can look and work very, very well in understanding a system, essentially. Understanding there's a product, I can see a button, it's a signal, I know that's what I'm going to press and something's going to happen. For us, we do enormous amounts of work in studying and understanding the power of that, and we involve it in all of our products. It's vital.
You mentioned longevity a few times. I guess you're talking about a switch potentially wearing down, but I also see a switch as having incredible longevity because you don't have to worry about reprogramming interfaces, or it's always just going to go up or down. Is there also something to that from a longevity of product perspective?
Yes, there is. Although, having said that, if you've got a product and you've got, shall we say, one switch and you need to turn it on and off and you're continually doing it, it is actually a weak point. When I say longevity, as long as it's easy to repair or replace or maintain, a switch is always going to be the best. It's just that, unfortunately, we live in a world where longevity is not, particularly with technology, is not really a quality that is, shall we say, sought after, because technology by default is very temporal. It's going to be obsolete a lot more quickly than we think. But having said that, there, particularly a lot of young people, I've noticed, you can see that they gravitate towards the analog. It's very important to them, particularly in music and image, so photography, cameras, listening to music. It hasn't gone away. In fact, it's growing. And it means that young people feel often as though they weren't brought up in a very analog world, and there's something very attractive to it. I think the attraction is, again, the basicness of control and of signals. And so switches, dials, this idea that you are mechanically moving something from one state to the next is not so much romantic, but it feels as though as an individual, as a person, you are having a direct control on that object. You're not having part control, and then software is also taking up part of that control. The biggest mistake was when we had what's called fuzzy logic, which is a kind of a pre-AI type of learning method. So they implanted it in the classic example, which was washing machines. So the idea was that, well, the washing machine would learn what you're washing and it would adjust its programmability based upon that. And they had the interface, which was not a switch, but it was either a membrane, so you're not really getting very good feedback, or many times you're completing a circuit. So you're pressing what looks like a button, but you're getting zero feedback other than either an audio sound or a light. They were a disaster, an absolute disaster. People didn't respond to them very well at all. And so you'll see a lot of washing machines now going back to physical buttons and dials because of their simplicity, and because particularly not just with young people but with growing families, it's this idea that I can actually control it. I'm the boss. It's my machine. And I don't want you to take up so much of the control because I like my nuances. It's something that I firmly believe in. It's a phenomena, and it doesn't seem to be going away. But of course, there are pressures to open up other avenues and methods of control.
The washing machine really hit a nerve for me because whenever I go back to my mum's, I'm trying to put my clothes in and it'll be like load full, and it's like, no, it's about 20% full. It's not full. Let me put in what I want to put in. It feels like there is a good business case for still having haptic feedback in design.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It will never go away. It's just a case of appreciating it and understanding it and not going down the temptation of too much constant efficiency and optimization. Sometimes you have to realize that what you're doing is you're making a product being used by people. You want them to enjoy it, and you want them to, shall we say, recommend it to friends.
My thanks to Sam Hecht of Industrial Facility there. We're in the final week of August, which means we're coming to the end of the summer season in the Northern Hemisphere. This can only mean one thing for Monocle on Design. That is the last time we'll hear this for the year. Please take it away, Fernando Augusto Pacheco.
It's summertime. It's the summer series. Monocle on Design's Summer Essentials.
This is the final instalment of our summer series. I'm joined in the studio by this show's producer, Maylee Evans. Maylee Evans, welcome to this side of the glass, this side of your fishbowl.
It's so exciting to be outside of that tank.
I must say, a little bit chilly in here, though, compared, which is maybe nice given how I assume temperatures are scorching across Europe. I haven't actually looked. It has been very toasty here in London, which I feel like is the perfect environment for setting up what is your ideal summer design choices. Tell us a little bit about what we're working with today.
Well, I found it really interesting in some of the places we've ventured to so far with Faye, Grace and yourself. We've kind of focused on going abroad, going somewhere sunny. But for many of us, we spend our summer in the city. We are kind of amongst the asphalt jungle. And so I guess my design picks are reflecting my own summer, maybe spent in August here in London, and some of the essentials for maybe trying to escape some of that heat, getting it a little bit into nature, into those pockets of greenery dotted around the city.
And this is kind of inspiration for people in cities everywhere.
We try.
It's a look at what you're doing in your own hometown, and maybe it encourages people to look at what they might do in theirs.
I hope so. You don't need to take a flight somewhere to discover new sort of corners of your own city, and I hope that for those of us who are having to face the heat somewhere where there isn't a beach in close proximity, that we can find a bit of summer sunshine in our own patch.
So let's run through it.
My plan for the day, we're going to do a hike somewhere green. Maybe Parkland Walk, which is this trail. It was a railway track. Nature's been left to sort of take it over again. It's like a nice walking trail. We get a lot of cyclists going through, and it runs in North London from Finsbury Park up through to Highgate Woods. And if you want to extend that walk, you can then move on to another bit of greenery up in Alexandra Palace. So this is a couple of miles, nothing too crazy. You don't need to bring any hiking sticks out with you, but it's just a gentle stroll. And so in my mind, I'm packing the perfect day bag for such a journey.
I love this. Do we have the bag?
We have the bag. There are a couple of options. I was opting for maybe a Rains rucksack. I'm looking for a piece of design that I might be able to take on a plane with me, something functional. I'm very much about something that can face a summer shower should it appear, something that's not too heavy and, looks a little bit stylish. I've also been looking at Finister, which is also a UK brand. Again, wonderful for those sudden downpours. A lot more practical, I suppose.
Yeah, we're leaning towards utility as the focus.
Alongside that, you need to keep hydrated, so I'm bringing along with me a Kinto water bottle. I've got the second one of them that I've been using for the last few years. A wonderful insulated piece of design that looks a treat on your table at work or sort of stuck in your rucksack, and keeps drinks lovely and cool, which in the summer heat, much needed.
So maybe this is the theme here. It's balancing beauty and utility, and I think that's really, really important.
Next up is a pair of sandals that I have had many a comment from one of my colleagues. She's called them the ugliest shoes ever. I would like to say that on Japanese fashion blogs, they've been going down pretty well. I don't know if you know which...
No, I don't know. Which ones? What are we talking?
This is the Keen Unique sandal.
I'm so here for them. And I feel like this is a thing at the moment. You know those 5-fingered sort of toe shoes?
I mean, that's a step too far.
No. I'm starting to see them everywhere. This is the thing. And my wife has been wearing them for years. Very cool, very stylish woman.
Agreed.
But these are... We're seeing this kind of... I keep saying utility, but it is the word. We're seeing this embrace of utility and practicality, and actually having these kind of functional pieces become show-stopping elements. Your Keen sandals, the actual way that they're kind of woven together. Yes, there's a practical component, but actually the weaving makes them look incredibly beautiful.
No, that's it. And they feel smart enough that I can wear them to work and to other occasions where I need to be maybe a bit polished, but it's quite warm outside, so I don't really want to be schlepping it around in a pair of heavy-set leather trainers. So they're a wonderful mix there. But again, are perfect for a hike or somewhere where you might find a body of water and might want to step in without worrying about rocks underfoot. So it feels like a nice sort of balance between the two there. Next up, it's lunchtime. We've been on the trail for a few hours. I'm looking at a small lunchbox from Black & Blum, and this is just a wonderful little steel lunchbox. Looks beautiful, very chic. Could whack it into the oven later on if you find you've still got a couple of bits. This is a company that's been making lunchboxes since 2014, so they know what they're doing, and they do it really, really well.
So I'm not having my Superman or Star Wars inspired lunchboxes from when I was a kid.
I mean, hey, use the lunchbox that you've got. I've got many a Winnie the Pooh lunchbox knocking away in the back of the cupboard. But, you know...
But this is the sleek one that you want to be seen with, that you want, you know, you're not afraid to pull out in public.
We're levelling up a bit. I wanted to finish off this with a pair of sunglasses.
Essential.
And this would be Cubits. This is a brand, again, I've been wearing for a couple of years, sort of heavy duty, acetate. I don't worry if my glasses fall to the ground. They can withstand most knocks and bumps. So it would be a pair of sunglasses from them, maybe an emerald or perhaps a honey colour, something a bit more light and fun.
Can I throw in my recommendation?
Of course.
I'm wearing some Arlems, and I have been for years, and they are just the most beautiful sunglasses, perfectly kind of striking that balance between a trendy, thinner frame, but they're not so small that it's letting sunlight in. I think that is the key thing for me. I want to look cool, but I also want to make sure that my eyes are protected. So that's my pick.
Beautiful. It sounds like an excellent pair of sunglasses.
And we're popping both of them on, and then obviously finishing this off with maybe taking inspiration from Fernando and a nice beer by a canal somewhere in North London.
Sounds like a plan.
Looking forward to it.
It's the Summer Series. Monocle Designs Summer Essentials. Design Essentials.
And that's all for today's show. For more design stories, listen to our 5-minute midweek bonus show, Monocle on Design Extra, which airs on Thursdays. And if you enjoy print, then do pick up a copy of Monocle magazine as well. It's on all good newsstands now. Today's episode was produced and edited by Maylee Evans, with help from Hunter Wang. I'm Nick Manise. Thanks for listening.